my lively lovelies, and welcome to Alive with Aaliyah. I'm Aaliyah. I'm so thankful to be here, to be alive, and I'm so thankful you're here joining me. Welcome. I am pleased to be introducing my new series on adapting to chronic illness. I really thought it would be helpful to get into more detail about lifestyle adaptations and coping to life with chronic illness and disability and that sort of thing. Not too long ago I did a little video on adaptation and I got all symptomatic and just got me thinking about, I have a lot more to say on this subject. So chronic illness is often variable, and we experience lots and ups and downs with our symptoms. This is especially true during major changes, like when you first get your condition at onset, when you're experiencing a major flare, or when you're experiencing disease progression. But of course, the nature of variable illnesses is that it can even be up and down throughout the day or throughout the week. So we constantly need to be open to adjusting to these changes in our abilities. This series will cover how I approach tasks and actions in my life, such as like mobility, chores, self-care, taking care of myself, and how I'm doing that through the lens of a person with chronic illness. Me specifically, I have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, dealing with the mast cell activation syndrome. I've had the fibromyalgia diagnosis for a while and got all sorts of quirky stuff going, from having the Castleman's disease tumor and some surgeries and partial vocal cord paralysis. So, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty on all my conditions. The point isn't really necessarily the specifics, although they do impact my adaptations, but just, sharing my perspective as someone living with chronic illness as a way to spur ideas in others who might relate. So to introduce this series, I really want to first get into the approach, like the mental mindset, the things you want to be thinking about as you're seeking to adapt to different situations or chores or tasks. I find it really helpful to adjust expectations, to let go of thinking about maybe how I used to do things or how friends and families and other normal people do things. It's important to kind of set those things aside and be open-minded and thinking about new possibilities and new ways of doing things. I find it's helpful to evaluate what you can do, to go through and think about, hey, this is an ability I have, this is a skill I have, these are tools that I can put to use. It really helps get that brainstorming going, because then you can start making new connections and thinking about applying the abilities you do have to tasks that maybe seem challenging right now. It's also really helpful because it's validating to just go through in your mind and think, hey, I can do this, I can do that. It's great to get that validation. So start thinking about your challenges, right? And frame them that way. We can call them struggles, we can call them obstacles, but the key is to look at these as areas for growth, areas for setting new goals, things to learn from. So maybe, the task that you were unable to complete yesterday is something that you're looking at as a challenge today. So as you're looking at these challenges, start brainstorming about new and different ways to approach them. And there are a lot of different ways to do this. Consider your triggers. Think about the things that set off your symptoms, and then start brainstorming about, hey, are there ways that I can remove this trigger? Are there ways that I can maybe mitigate these triggers and make them impact me less? For me, for an example, standing up or being upright is a huge known trigger, for POTS. So what I do oftentimes is find ways to, do things from a seated position or minimize the amount of time I spend standing. Really start thinking about tools and gadgets and gizmos and all the little things that you can be picking up to make life easier. Sometimes it's just something little, like a little grabber to extend your reach. That might make things easier. Or maybe it's, get in a wheelchair so that you can cruise around town. Pay attention to how much energy you're spending throughout the day on different tasks. Look into spoon theory if you haven't heard of that. It's really helpful, even if that changes through the day. Different tasks takes different amount of energy, but it will help you as you try to, manage fatigue and get the most that you can out of the energy you do have. And then still thinking about energy, you may want to think about things that you're doing in life that take a lot of energy that maybe you don't need to be doing. It's important to sometimes just simplify and minimize. It might be removing some tasks out of a routine, like, your morning makeup routine, or it might be just completely getting rid of something in life that's exhausting you, maybe by delegating it or finding, a replacement for that task. So in that same line of thinking, think about ways you can streamline processes. Think about efficiency. And again, this is just like brainstorming, right? So if you think, okay, let's be efficient, let's streamline, just having those ideas, those basic concepts in your head will suddenly ching, ching, give you little ideas while you're actually going through your day. One thing I find really helpful is to make certain tasks be double or triple duty, right? Like, let's say I'm picking up leaves outside. Of course, I'm using the tool to make it easier for myself. I'm also using it as an exercise to flex my leg muscles so I can prolong standing and get practice at that. And of course, I'm using it as a meditation and practicing mindfulness. And so I am getting a lot out of something that's just a basic chore. Try checking out other people's suggestions, their hacks, other people living with chronic illness or having similar challenges to you. That can be a great way to get new ideas or to get some out-of-the-box thinking. It's important, though, to always remember that we all experience our conditions differently, even if we have the same condition, and that we have access to different types of support and resources, and that these things are not universal, even if they should be. So keep that in mind. Be willing to do things in different ways than normal. Now is the time to be creative, and letting go of these constructs of normalcy will be really helpful to help spur new ideas. And don't be afraid to seek assistance when you need it. That can be a key part of adapting. I might be going through and talking about all the ways that you are able and you can do things, but you know what? It's okay to say, hey, I'm gonna save this energy and I'm gonna delegate this task. Or you know what? I haven't figured out an adaptation to, doing my dishes or going out and doing my laundry. I'm gonna ask someone else to help me with that. Yes, do what you need to do. So as you go through and you're brainstorming and you're coming up with new ideas, you're gonna wanna start trying these adaptations, right? That's super exciting. And as you go through and you try new ways of doing things, it's gonna be important to, be mindful of your actions as you go and to consider some things. In all things, balance is key, and so balancing between positive thinking and realism is going to be really important. Use that positive thinking. Use that to encourage yourself, to give yourself some faith that you can do it, but keep that realism in mind. You want to be careful about injuring yourself, setting off a flare, that sort of thing. You want to be mindful of repercussions. So, experiment, flex that out. Believe in yourself, but keep in mind the reality of the situation. So this is huge. Give yourself credit when you succeed. Even if you don't fully complete your new task, your new adaptation, take every little success as exactly what it is. Celebrate it, enjoy it. You are doing so great. You are doing a great job. So yes, enjoy that. Give yourself credit. And you know what? Give yourself credit when you try something and it doesn't work out. Do you know how brave you have been to try this, right? Give yourself credit for all the work you're putting into adjusting to life in your new normal. You're doing so great. Find the gratitude in that learning experience. And while we're talking about things like positive thinking and gratitude, and I was also speaking of realism, part of the reality of adapting to chronic illness is making space for grief, for sadness, for mourning. There are losses that you're dealing with, that I deal with, and to allow yourself the space to feel that, to grieve, that catharsis is healthy and that's good for you, and that's part of the adaptation process too. One thing I found is that not everyone understands my condition or my attempts at trial and error to adapt to it. So I do try to have some mental space set aside for that. Now, of course, you don't owe anyone an explanation for your health or the ways that you're trying to live your life. I do sometimes find it helpful, though, if someone doesn't understand, to try to take it as an opportunity to educate them or to raise awareness about chronic illness. So once you start finding new ways of doing things, adaptations that are really working for you, I think it's really important to remember that this is an ongoing process. You don't get to adapt to chronic illness and then be done, right? You're constantly adjusting. You're always learning new things. This is an ongoing process. So it's important to stay flexible, to stay open-minded, and to always be open to trying new ways of doing things. Thank you so much for joining me as I introduce the new series, Adapting to Chronic Illness. I feel really thankful for all that I've gotten to learn and experience as I've tried to adapt to the challenges that I face. And I hope that by sharing these, that maybe they can help you or someone you know or love. This has been Alive with Aaliyah. I'm Aaliyah. Live in love with life.